All right, so let's begin the show and let's talk about claim settlement in your insurance policies. To elaborate more on this, I have Amit Chhabra, Chief Business Officer, General Insurance Policy Bazaar, and Sharad Bajaj, COO Insurance Dekho. Good evening and welcome to the show. Amit, let me come to you first because I want to understand the importance of claim settlement, whether it being a life insurance policy or a health insurance policy. A lot of time people focus more or give thrust to this particular element whenever they are making a buying decision. Should that be done, and what do you actually mean a claim settlement ratio? How do the companies actually build it, and what does it mean a company having a lower claim settlement ratio and a higher claim settlement ratio?
Sure. See, it's a very simple metric if you look at it, right? Claim settlement ratio means that if I'm an insurance company and I get 100 claims from my consumers, how many of them are paid? So let's say if 95 of those claims are paid, then the claim settlement ratio is 95%. Just that the devil lies in the details of it, right? So just for all the viewers, see, it depends on what kind of policies an insurance company is selling. Are these retail policies? Are these corporate or group insurance policies? Are these health insurance indemnity policies? Are these fixed benefit policies? So at times, this metric of claim settlement ratio also, may not reflect the completely truest picture about an insurance company's claim performance. Actually, if you are, but thankfully, given how insurance is regulated in this country, claims are looked at extremely closely, and there is no way that a claim can be denied if the consumer has done all things right. So, for example, if a claim has to be paid as per the terms and conditions of the policy, which means that there is no waiting period, there is no exclusion, and the claim is as per the benefits provided in the policy, then a claim cannot be denied. So technically, if I am a consumer, I have to think of my claim settlement ratio as 100%, assuming that I am well aware of my policy terms and conditions and exclusions. So I would say it's extremely important first as a policy holder to understand your policy and not just go by one single metric of claim settlement ratio, because there are various nuances to that data point. If you understand your policy better and you have truthfully declared about your health conditions, then your health insurance claim cannot be denied. So for you, the claim settlement ratio is going to be 100%. You can go to any company, the answer will be the same. The claim settlement ratio will be 100%. The same applies to life insurance also and to motor insurance as well. So I think it's more than claim settlement ratio. I think knowing your policy, understanding your policy features, benefit, exclusions, limitations, that is more important. And if you do that rightly, then the claim settlement ratio is actually not such a useful metric to you because your claim will be paid. And again, as I said, thankfully, the way the Indian regulation looks at it, the way the IRDA looks at it, they don't really allow an insurance company to, on their whims and fancies to deny a claim or sort of, do stuff like, I want to reject a claim because let's say many claims are coming. These things can't really happen. So one can be completely assured about the claim settlement.
Despite that, Sharad, despite that, there's a lot of comfort factor when it comes to the name like an LIC as compared to the other private companies. Okay, we know that we are governed by a fantastic regulator, and there have been steps taken to make it standardized, or to get the transparency between the player and the policyholder or consumer. But why the comfort level and why that trust factor more on a brand like an LIC as compared to other private players?
What essentially happens is that LIC also tends to overlook a lot of these details. What Amit mentioned, that what is very important is when you are buying a policy, you have to be aware of what are you essentially buying. And when LIC creates a policy, it creates a loosely worded or a widely worded policy which covers all sorts of, let's say in terms of life, all sorts of death. But when it comes to private companies, or some other companies, what they would essentially do is they would say that ABC are what is covered. Anything which is beyond ABCD is not covered. And hence your claim will not get settled. But in terms of LIC, they have a very wide coverage and they tend to pass on all the claims. And hence people look at LIC as somebody who has always paid claims. Now, what is also very important is that LIC was in existence from a very long time, and probably all of us around would have at least bought one LIC policy. And largely, if it is an investment policy, you always get paid. And if it's a death benefit policy, at the time of death of the policy holder, the next to kin or the nominee gets paid. So LIC has been paying all of these claims, and because of the sheer number of population that they have insured, if you go and ask practically anybody, people will say that my claim is paid by LIC. Now, if you look at some of the data points of life insurance companies, the difference between the worst, the company which has the lowest claim settlement ratio versus company which has the highest claim settlement ratio is not very different. It is, the difference would be a maximum of about 2 percentage points for all retail policies. So it does not really matter in terms of what is the claim settlement ratio. What is very, very important is that when one is buying a policy, then you should look at clearly in terms of what is covered by your policy and what is not covered. I will give you a classical example of an health insurance case. A health insurance policy specifically excludes maternity claim. So when the customer bought that policy, it mentioned that maternity benefit is not covered. But the customer still came and filed a claim for maternity benefit. Now, the insurance company or any insurance company in their right mind will not settle this claim. This claim has to get denied because the benefit itself is not covered. So at the time of buying policy, please do I would request the viewers to do their due diligence. And I would also sincerely request everybody to please declare every information correctly. And if anybody is suggesting you to hide any information, I would say please don't buy a policy from them. And please go to somebody else who is asking you to declare everything correctly.
No, it's very important to declare all the right informations, and it is a contract that you are getting into with a company. But having said that, a very small example, we've had a lot of viewer queries also on these lines. And Amit, maybe you can explain this. When Sharad said that one needs to read the policy documents, one needs to get the due diligence done properly. Amit, the first problem is the wording of the document. That language is very difficult. It is not easy for anyone to understand it. You will have to go out and take help from someone to help make you understand what is there in the policy document in the first place. Be it life insurance or health insurance. And this is the reason why we see a lot of mis-selling cases also. So I get the aspect where you need to, be transparent and be honest with everything, your track records, etc. But the problem arises from the policy document wording itself.
Yeah. See, Kavita, you have to understand health insurance. Let's take the example of health insurance and build this up. See, health insurance at the end of the day is a legal contract, right? Now, so for a layman consumer to understand the terms and conditions is tough. You're right, absolutely right, no doubt in that. But see, that's why most people need some sort of an advisor when they're buying a health insurance policy. So actually, like even on Policy Bazaar, we see that very few people buy health insurance on their own. People have an idea that, that let's say I want to buy 1 crore sum insured or 10 lakh sum insured, and I want to be sure that these are the 5 hospitals I will want to go to in case there is a claim. But beyond that, to understand how sum insureds work, how waiting periods work, you're right. People don't have that, don't have that exact details. And that is actually one of the reasons why eventually some of these claims get rejected. So which is where we are getting to, that when one is buying a health insurance or any insurance policy for that matter, it's extremely important that you do your due diligence, understand in detail. It's a legal agreement. The problem is at the time of claim, if it comes out that the consumer did not disclose something, then it's a breach of contract, and that breach of contract eventually leads to a claim rejection. So one very, very important point is please ensure that when you're buying a policy, you go to a specialist. There was a time not very long back when somebody would come to your home and say that, this ABC policy is great. give me a check and we'll just issue a policy to you. Without somebody even knowing what are the benefits in this policy, this I'm not talking of a very sort of vague example. This happened to me personally about 5 years back, so this is something which is very, very common, happens even today. Somebody comes to your home and says that this is the policy, give me a check and you will get the policy. The problem is, if you don't understand what is contained in the policy and what is not contained in the policy, eventually that leads to claims rejections. That is where it's important. This research is extremely important. So, like, for example, some of the stuff that we do when a consumer is buying from us. So one is we make sure that we explain the benefits, features, exclusions in detail. There is a barrage of processes that a consumer actually has to go through just to ensure that the consumer has understood what they are buying. Be it how the sum insured will work, how will, let's say, restoration will work, how will no claim bonus work, what are the waiting periods, which hospital one has to go to. Like, I'll give you one more example, which is very real, and we see some claims getting denied because of that. Now, every health insurance company today says that there is a list of blacklisted hospitals where you cannot go. If you go there, your claim is denied because that hospital is prone to fraud. This list is available on the insurance company's website. We also send this list to every consumer from time to time. But the truth is, unfortunate truth is, very few people actually know about this list, or they check this list from time to time. The problem is, when in the case of an emergency, you have to rush to a hospital. At that point, one is not going to go to a website and check a list.
Right, totally.
So, as a consumer, this awareness is extremely important. And that's what we all are trying to do. And
exactly.
Again,
awareness and homework, at least from your end. So I really want to come at the end of the discussion. And Sharad, one last question to you. All right, so we've discussed about claim settlement ratio and its relevance in your buying decision. But apart from that, because the space is going to be very competitive now, life insurance and health insurance, to 2047, we are looking at insurance for all. This space is going to have more players now. What should one look at before buying a life insurance policy, Sharad, and a health insurance policy? What should be your item of, your checklist, that these things as a green flag should be there in your policy?
So, Kavita, I would put it this way, that let's say if you were to go and buy a house for yourself, you just don't go and buy a house just because somebody said this is a good house. What you do is you go, you look at the house, you look at every detail. So similarly, as a user, if you're buying a health insurance or a life insurance policy, what you have to think of is that you're doing a long-term investment. And it is very, very important that you look at all these parameters in terms of what is covered, what is not covered. What is very important is to look at what is not covered and what are the exclusions of the policy, and to understand in what scenarios your claims will not get paid, and then make a decision in terms of whether it is a health policy, life policy, or for that matter, a motor policy, or your home insurance itself. So do some research, do a thorough understanding of what gets covered, and more important, what is not covered, and then make a decision to buy. Don't just look at price in terms of this is priced less, this is priced more, so let me go with something which is priced less. Find out what is covered, what is not covered. Somebody who is pricing it very low, are they taking off certain covers, or do they have certain additional exclusions which is not generally part of your normal policy? What our regulators have been trying to do is to come up with standardized policy. At least in health, they have come up with standardized policy, which will help ensure that people, what they buy, at least there is a common comparison which you can do across companies.
Right. All right. I think on that note, it's time up on the show as well. Thank you so much, Amit and Sharad, for being on the show and helping our viewers buy the right kind of life insurance and health insurance policy. Thank you so much. We'll take a quick break, and post that I'll be joined by Abhijit Choksi, who will be doing your life financial planning on the show.
There comes a time when your heart calls for you to arise. Plant your feet solid into the ground. Decide your own limits, and then break right through them. Become something more. it's my time to rise.